Welcome to Python Programming Language video tutorials by Shine India Pvt Limited. I am your Posubabu Sir, Technical Quant Logical Reasoning Trainer. In this presentation, I would like to discuss introduction to built-in data structure, that is a list. Without wasting our time, let's start and discuss about the list. So list means a group of different types of elements. So let me write the same here. So it is a group of different types of elements, right? So this is what about the list. So in generally, you may hear the list word in our routine life, right? So we usually hear a shopping list, right? So let me write it here. So what shopping list consists of? So shopping list consists of what? So it consists of different types of items. Shopping list consists of different types of items. So it might be grocery items or clothes or something else, right? So we usually hear this shopping list, right? So let me show you the shopping list an example. Suppose if I have taken grocery items. So this is what the list of some grocery items. So regarding grains, regarding pulses, right? So here I have mentioned here. So moong dal, right? Tur dal, urad dal, right? So oils. So we have different types of items in the list over here, right? So this is what the shopping list an example. In the same way, so in Python, we have a list concept, so which consists of what? Different types of elements. So it is a group of different types of elements, whereas shopping list consists of what? A group of different types of items. Here, elements are also called, we can call it as items. Elements are also called as items. So let me give a small example here. So prior to discuss a small example for the list, so how do you represent the list? So try to remember here, let me write it. So in to represent the list, so we have to use the symbol called square brackets. So you have to use square brackets. So do remember this point, right? So how do you represent the list? So this is what the symbol you have to use, right? So we are going to use square brackets, right? So inside this square brackets, it is an empty list actually. So inside this square brackets, so we can place the elements, right? Now let me take an example for the elements which are there in the list. As I told you, to represent the list, we are going to use square brackets. So let me write here square brackets. And here we are going to place items or elements. So let me write here 2 and hi, and I'm writing here Python, and one more element I'm writing here some 3.6. So these are the elements so which are there in the list, right? So if you keenly observe over here, these elements are which data types? So these elements are heterogeneous data types. Heterogeneous data types, which means heterogeneous means what? Different data types. Different data types. Different data types, which means so list can hold different data types. List can hold different data types, right? So I hope you could understand what is meant by list. So now let me execute this list, sample list in my IDE. So let me open my IDE. Now, let me take over here some A is equal to, see here A means what? Variable name or label name. So which means here I'm going to take one list and I'm going to place so some elements, right? So inside this list, I'm taking 2 as one of the element, and the next element is Python. And the third element, I'm going to take some float value over here, 4.6. So, and I'm going to take one more string here. So that is hello. Now let us print. Let us print A, right? And execute it. So you could see over here, list has been printed. So I hope everybody is clear with this sample list, right? So to represent the list, we are going to use a square brackets, right? So I hope it is clear to everybody. Now let us go and discuss the important characteristics which are there in the list. So let me open it. So these are the important characteristics which are there in the list. So what is the first one? The first characteristic I have mentioned here, mutability. What is meant by mutability? So mutability means, so we can modify the list, which means we can alter the list elements. So what is meant by alter? Alter means we can add the elements into the existing list, or we can remove the elements from the existing list, or we can modify the elements which are there in the list, right? So which means lists are mutable in nature. Very, very important point. Lists are mutable, which means we can alter the elements which are there in the list. So here alter means we can add the elements or remove the elements, or we can modify the elements, or we can delete the elements, right? So these are the things will happen in the mutability nature, right? So I hope the idea is clear to everybody, right? Now let's go back and I'll show you one of the operation over here, right? Suppose I just want to modify one element here. So, right? So you may not understand what I'm doing. So you just try to verify whether the element is modified or not. So now let me write here. So A of 2 equal to, I'm writing talent shine. And now let me print A. Now you could see. So here the list elements has been modified. So you just try to observe. Previously we have here 4.6. Now we have a talent shine, right? So which means we can modify the elements which are there in the list. So hence lists are mutable. Lists are what? Mutable. So I hope the idea is clear regarding this mutability nature, right? So in coming to variable length, so next characteristic, right? Variable length. So since we are modifying the list or we can add the list. So previously we have suppose 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 4 elements are there in the list, some A equal to, right? So now if I have added one element to the same list, so A is equal to, so let me erase it. So A is equal to, so I have added one element to the list. So now new list regarding A becomes what? So the element which I have added over here is some 7. So 7 has been added, right? So in a same list A, so we have added one element here. So here the length of the list is 4, whereas here the length of the list is 5 because 5 elements are there, right? So we can say lists are in variable length. So as we have mutability nature. So because of this mutability nature, lists are variable in length, right? So it is not constant, right? So here it is, the length is 4, here the length is 5. So I hope you could understand what is meant by variable length, right? So I hope everybody is clear, right? And coming to the duplicate elements. So list can allow a duplicate elements, which means what? Let me show you in my IDE. So let me erase this. Now A is equal to, I'm taking one list. So which consists of some duplicate elements. So let me write here, hi. So again, I'm going to take hi. So I'm going to take 3. I'm going to take 2. So again, I'm going to take 3, right? So here some duplicate elements are there. So now let me print A. So in the same order, we are getting the elements hi, 3, 2, 3, which means duplicate elements are allowed in the list, right? So in list, you may use the elements as duplicate elements, right? As per your requirement, right? So duplicate elements will be there in the list. So there will be no problem, right? So duplicate elements is allowed in the list, right? Next one, linear data structure, which means the elements which are there in the list can be arranged, can be arranged, can be arranged can be arranged in a linear order, in a linear order, which means the elements can be arranged in a linear order, which means what? So first element added, second element, third element, and so on, right? So the elements which are there in the list can be arranged linear order, so linearly. So which means first element added, second element, third element, and so on. So we can say lists are in linear data structure, right? So I hope everybody understood about this linear data structure point. Now, next one is so zero-based indexing. Prior to go for zero-based indexing, so let me explain what is meant by indexing. As you are familiar already, index means, right? So you will refer many books, right? So where you may see the index. So many textbooks you may refer it, where you may see index page, which consists of chapter names and where the chapters are there, right? So chapter one, so it is located from seventh page, right? So if you open seventh page, you may see chapter one. I just want to refer chapter seven. So I have to go 113 page number, right? So like this, if you want to access elements which are there in the list, so you have to use indexing, right? So to access the elements in list, so what concept you have to learn? Indexing concept you have to learn. Do remember this point, right? So indexing plays a vital role in order to access the elements which are there in the list, right? We have two types of indexings, right? So one is forward indexing and second one is backward indexing. Now let me explain what is meant by forward indexing and what is meant by backward indexing. Let me take one example here so that you could understand easily. So let me write here one list. Some A is equal to, let me write some 3, 7, 4.6. So let me write one string high, right? So these are the four elements which have taken in this list, right? So here we have two types of indexings. We have two types of indexing in order to what? Access these elements which are there in the list, right? So first one is forward indexing, forward indexing, and second one is backward indexing. So there are two types of indexing, forward indexing and backward indexing. Do remember, forward indexing always starts with a zero, right? So forward indexing always starts from zero onwards, whereas backward indexing always starts from -1, right? Now let me give over here. So this is forward indexing. This is forward indexing. Let me write here. And this one is backward indexing. Let me write B. So this forward indexing will start from what number? 0 onwards, which means here this is 0 and 1, 2, 3. So if you want to access 4.6, so you have to use the indexing here. If you are going to use A of, you have to use square brackets, subscript you have to use. So A of 2 means you will be getting 4.6, right? So A of 2, you will be getting what? 4.6, right? Now, from where backward indexing will start. So as I have discussed already, backward indexing will start from -1, which means here this is -1, -2, -3, -4, right? So if you are writing A of 2 here, you are getting what? The output 4.6. In the same way, if you are writing A of -2 also, the result remains same, 4.6. Suppose if I have written A of -1, what you will be getting? The output as high, right? So if you are writing A of 3, then also you will be getting what? Same out. So I hope you could understand, right? So indexing, right? What is the use of indexing? So we can access the elements which are there in the list. So we have two varieties right here in the indexing. One is forward indexing and second one is backward indexing. Forward indexing starts from where? 0 onwards, whereas backward indexing starts from -1, right? So using this forward indexing and backward indexing, we can access the elements which are there in the list. So I just want to print 4.6. So how do you get it? So you may use forward indexing, right? So A of 2, right? Here you have to use subscript, right? Square brackets. Inside the square brackets, you have to place the index number. So what is the index number here? 2. So 2 I have placed. So I got the output as 4.6. Right? Though you are using backward indexing, so you will be getting same output. So A of -2, you will be getting same output. So I hope you could understand. So let me open my IDE and let me explain once again the same concept over there. Right? Now, let me write here. So let me change the elements. I'm going to remove the duplicate elements over here. So, and then I'm writing different elements. So I'm going to take one complex number as well. So 3 plus some 4j, right? So let me access, uh, I just want to access 3 plus 4j, right? So for that I'm writing here, so A of -1. So backward indexing I'm using. So let me execute it. You could see the output over here, 3 plus 4j. If you want to see it on the screen, try to use print statement over here. So print of A of -1, right? Execute it, right? So can I get the same complex number in forward indexing? Yes. So it is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let me write here A of 4. So you will be getting same output. So I hope you could understand. So what I have explained so far, right? So let me go back, right? So what are the different characteristics what we have learned so far? So we have learned mutability. So mutability means what? We can alter the elements, right? Which means we can add, remove, modify, or delete the elements, right? So this is what? So lists are mutable in nature, right? So now let's come to the variable length. So because of this nature, so lists are variable length, right? So if you see here, 4 elements are there. If I have added one element to the list A, so now the length becomes 5. So hence, lists are in variable length. So list length of the list may vary, right? So list can hold even duplicate elements. And the next one is lists are linear data structure, which means what? The elements which are there in the list can be arranged in a linear order, right? So first element, second element, third elements, and so on, right? Now, indexing. When coming to the indexing, so we have, so if you want to access the elements which are there in the list, so we are going to use indexing. So we have a two types of indexings. One is forward indexing and second one is backward indexing, right? So forward indexing will starts from where? Let me open my presentation over here and I'll show you with an example, right? So here forward indexing. So forward indexing, this is 0, 1, 2, 3. So the same thing I have represented over here. So forward indexing. So at 0 we have 45, right? So at 1 we have 56. Yet at 2, so at index 2 we have 67. At index 3 we have a 20, right? So this is what forward indexing. So whereas backward indexing, you just see this is backward indexing, right? So at -1 we have what? 20. At -2 we have 67, right? So you can access the elements which are there in L1 either in forward indexing or backward indexing, right? So I hope the idea is clear to everybody. So the next final point, so which I would like to discuss over here is lists are ordered. Lists are ordered. So what is meant by ordered? So to make it clear in a better way, so let me give a small example in my IDE. So I'm going to remove here the previous code and then, so let me take one set here, right? So set can be represented with the curly brackets. So now I'm writing here different elements. So hello, and I'm writing here 2, 4, so 6.7, and I'm writing here Python, right? So now let me print A. So here I'm going to write one duplicate element as well. It's a duplicate element as some 4. Now let me execute it. You could see Order has been changed. Order has been changed, right? So here I have written hello first, but in output we got here is what? 2, right? And then 4, 6.7. So Python we got, and hello we got, right? So order has been changed, right? So means sets are what? Unordered. Sets are unordered, right? Now, let me take the same elements in the list. Some B is equal to, let us take square brackets, and I'm going to take the same elements. Now, let me place it over here, and then let me print B and execute it. You could see the order remains same. Hello first, hello. Next element is 2. Third element is 4. Fourth element is 6.7. So order remains same, right? So hence we can say lists are ordered, whereas sets are unordered, right? So order not follows, right? So here, right? So when you execute the same values, what I have mentioned over here in your IDE, you may get a different output. You may get the same output or different output because sets are what? Unordered, whereas lists are ordered, right? So I hope the idea of ordered concept is clear to everybody, right? Now we have discussed so far what? So what is meant by list we have discussed, and we have been discussed about some characteristics which are there in the list in this class. I hope everybody understood the introduction to the list, right? So if it is clear, please like, share, and subscribe our channel. Thanks for watching.